It was a scene no one saw coming, an empowered black CEO sitting quietly in her own restaurant, only to be abruptly kicked out. The staff, seemingly under the influence of someone more powerful, asked her to leave without a word of explanation. She didn't react with anger or fury. Instead, she calmly gathered her things, walked out with grace, and left the scene without a single word of protest. But here's where it gets interesting. The next day, this unexpected incident took a wild turn. The world found out who she really was and what she was planning. This wasn't just a woman being disrespected. This was a force of nature about to take control of her destiny. Her next move would send shockwaves through the industry and show everyone just what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. What happened after that day? You won't believe it. She could have simply let it go. But no, this powerful CEO had something bigger in mind. Something that would change the game forever. Stay tuned, because what unfolds next will leave you on the edge of your seat. You'll want to see how this incredible story of resilience, power, and payback unfolds. The woman at the center of it all was none other than Gabrielle Hayes, a self-made businesswoman who had spent years building her empire from the ground up. Her restaurant, Soulrise, had quickly become a symbol of success, an upscale yet soulful eatery blending fine dining with authentic flavors from her heritage. Gabrielle's journey wasn't an easy one. She faced countless challenges, doubters, and roadblocks, but her determination never wavered. She built Soulrise not just as a place to eat, but as a space for community, culture, and connection. But the events that unfolded in that restaurant weren't just about a misunderstanding or a bad decision. Gabrielle knew something bigger was at play. This wasn't random. There had been whispers in the industry, people who wanted to see her fail, threatened by her success. As Gabrielle walked out, the weight of everything she had worked for seemed to rest on her shoulders, but she wasn't the type to let anyone hold her down. The next morning, things started to unfold in a way that Gabrielle hadn't expected. The media caught wind of what happened, and soon enough, everyone from bloggers to investors was talking about the incident. People were curious about the mystery behind her calm departure, wondering why she hadn't fought back. But Gabrielle wasn't going to give them the answers they expected, not yet anyway. As the day went on, the story of Gabrielle's removal from her own restaurant started to gain traction. Social media exploded with people speculating on what had really happened. Some assumed it was just a misunderstanding between her and the staff, while others saw it as a sign of deeper tensions within her business. The whispers of sabotage began to grow louder. Gabrielle's competitors, particularly a rival restaurant owner named Marcus Wells, seemed to be strangely quiet in public, but behind closed doors, it was clear he was watching closely. Marcus had been trying to get his hands on Soulrise for months, making low-key attempts to buy her out, but Gabrielle had always turned him down. Was this his way of taking her down without her even knowing it? Meanwhile, Gabrielle herself was processing what had happened. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had been orchestrated, and that it wasn't just about the restaurant. This was bigger. Someone had wanted to break her spirit, make her look weak. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the perfect storm, a calculated move designed to damage her reputation and possibly even ruin her career. Gabrielle wasn't naive, and she knew that in this world, nothing was ever random. People wanted to see her fail because she represented something they didn't understand: empowerment, success, and defiance. But Gabrielle wasn't about to sit back and let this story define her. She had worked too hard to let someone take that from her. As the media frenzy grew, she decided it was time to make a move of her own. She wasn't just going to let this blow over quietly, she was going to fight back. However, she couldn't do it alone. She needed the right people on her side, but who could she trust? With betrayal lurking at every corner, Gabrielle would have to carefully navigate the murky waters of loyalty and deceit. The following days felt like a whirlwind for Gabrielle. Every news outlet, every gossip blog, and even influencers were sharing their opinions on the incident. Some praised her for walking away with dignity, others criticized her for not standing up more forcefully. But Gabrielle knew better than to get lost in the noise. She was no stranger to scrutiny. She had dealt with the public eye ever since the rise of Soulrise. Yet, this was different. This felt personal, like someone had been waiting for the perfect moment to tear her down. Behind the scenes, a pressure was mounting. Gabrielle's trusted manager, Lena, who had been with her since the very beginning, seemed unusually distant. Gabrielle couldn't help but notice the change in her behavior. Was Lena being pulled in by the pressure of the situation, or was she a part of it? It was a question that kept Gabrielle up at night, gnawing at her thoughts. She needed answers, and fast. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, a mysterious message came through Gabrielle's phone. It was simple but chilling. "Meet me at the usual spot. You're not alone in this." The message was from someone she hadn't heard from in years. Jared, an old friend who had helped her with the early days of her business before going off the grid. Gabrielle had always trusted him, but with everything that had happened, she wasn't sure who to trust anymore. Still, the message felt like a sign. She needed to take control of her own story, but how? As Gabrielle made her way to the meeting spot, her mind raced. Was this a trap? Or was this her chance to finally uncover the truth behind the betrayal? The mystery of who was behind the attack on Soulrise and why was consuming her. She had no idea that tonight would be the turning point, the moment everything would change. But what she didn't know was that she was walking straight into the very heart of the storm backslash. Gabrielle arrived at the meeting spot, a dimly lit corner cafe she and Jared had used to frequent when they first started building Soulrise. The air was thick with anticipation as she stepped inside, scanning the room for any sign of him. But there was no familiar face waiting for her. Instead, a man she didn't recognize sat in the corner booth, his back to her. His presence was unsettling, and something about his posture sent a chill down her spine. She hesitated but decided to approach. As she did, the man turned slowly, revealing a face she had seen only once before, Marcus Wells, the very rival who had been trying to buy out Soulrise. Gabrielle's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a casual encounter. This was a confrontation. Marcus smiled coldly as he stood up. "You didn't think I'd let you get away with this, did you?" His voice was calm, but there was a menacing edge to it. Gabrielle's pulse quickened. This was no longer about a restaurant. It was about power, control, and the dirty games of the business world. Before Gabrielle could respond, Marcus slid an envelope across the table toward her. "This is for you," he said, his eyes narrowing. "You've been played, Gabrielle. You're not the one they want." Confusion washed over her. What did he mean? Was he trying to manipulate her further, or was there something deeper going on? Gabrielle reached for the envelope, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a set of documents, contracts that revealed something truly shocking. Jared, her old friend and confidant, had been secretly working with Marcus to orchestrate her downfall. Her mind raced as the reality of the situation sank in. Jared wasn't just an old friend. He had been a mole, planted from the beginning, manipulating her every move. The trust she had placed in him now felt like a cruel joke. The weight of betrayal hit her hard, but there was no time to wallow in shock. This was bigger than just one person. This was a coordinated effort to take down everything she had built. As the pieces began to fall into place, Gabrielle realized just how much was at stake, not only her career but her very future. Marcus wasn't the only enemy she had to face. There were deeper forces at play, and the battle for Soulrise was far from over. The game was about to escalate, and Gabrielle was determined to take control, but she had no idea just how much more was lurking in the shadows. Gabrielle felt the weight of the envelope in her hands, her heart pounding as she tried to process the betrayal. Marcus's cold smirk made her blood boil. This was the culmination of months of manipulation, and yet, the puzzle pieces weren't quite fitting together. Something didn't add up. Jared's involvement was a shock, but was he really the mastermind? Was he working for Marcus the entire time, or was he just another pawn in a much bigger scheme? Without a word, Gabrielle stood up, the documents still clenched in her hands. She had no time for games anymore. She wasn't going to let Marcus have the satisfaction of watching her crumble. "I don't need this," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "You've underestimated me, Marcus." As she turned to leave, Marcus laughed softly, an almost pitying sound. "You think you can win this? You're already too far gone, Gabrielle. There's nothing left to save."